1-869-469-1616 and or 1700. By the way, those will be the numbers you'll use to be a part of this evening's discussion. Again, thank you all very much for joining us. Your voice in the community taught that get results. With regard to your participation in the show, we encourage you to call in on the numbers listed 1-869-469-1616 and or 1700. Here's a suggestion. You have a question or comment, perhaps get a pencil, piece of paper, write it down so that you're well organized. And when you get on the show, you take as little time as possible so that we can accommodate as many of you as we can. We ask only, first of all, you respect yourselves and then respect others, because we will not accept anything we deem that's not within our broadcast standards. But we encourage you to always be forceful with your point. Thank you all again for joining us. Your voice in the community taught that get results. By the way, you can also follow our live video stream of this program on our YouTube channel at Vaughan Radio. Click subscribe, and our Facebook page at Vaughan Radio. Thank you all again. Tonight, we have two segments of the program. The first segment, we'll be speaking with one of the organizations on Nevis, or departments that is of extreme importance in the society. The personnel of the laboratory at the Alexandra Hospital right here in Nevis. Julian Grant, good evening.
Good evening, and good evening, radio listeners. Hi, good night. We're here, myself, Julian Grant, as Mr. Herbert has mentioned, and Ernesia Pemberton is also here with us tonight.
Good evening.
And we're both here because this week is something that we celebrate yearly, but this year we wanted to do it bigger and better, and that what we are celebrating this week is Lab Week, Laboratory Professional Week. And in worldwide or internationally, the theme for this year is the lab is everything, but locally we chose to adopt the theme we got it in the bag, because this theme more fits us here on Nevis, and it captures two aspects that we would like to highlight. We wanted to highlight the confidence and care in the work at the lab that we do, and we also wanted to highlight blood banking, because blood banking is an important issue, and it's something that we have been working on over the years to improve the numbers that we get in volunteer donors, and to educate the public on what blood bank really entails. So throughout the week we've been having activities, and we will continue to have activities. It started on Monday, and I'll let Ernest here go through the list of what activities we've had and what we'll have this week.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Ernesia Pemberton from the Hospital Lab. We are here tonight to talk about our Lab Week events and blood banking in general. We are excited to be here and to let you guys know about all that we are planning for this week and what we've done so far. So just a quick rundown. This week, every day we've been sharing health tips on Vaughan Radio every morning, so listening for that every morning. We also wanted to involve the general public in some of the activities that we are doing now. So just for a little fun, we were doing color days. So every day we wear different color, and we are inviting the public to wear the colors with us. Yesterday we wore black, today we wore purple, tomorrow is blue, and then Thursday is burgundy. We had a lot of people come to the lab today to take pictures with us and just interact with us and learn more about the lab. We also, throughout the month, we're having a volunteer donor drive and blood donor drive as well. Julian will talk more about that later on. Every day we also have prizes for our patients that come in the morning to do lab tests. You get an opportunity to win your lab tests that are done here in Nevis for free. So far, today's Tuesday, so yesterday our winner for yesterday was Lorna Stapleton. Then today our winner was Vincent Chapman. Also yesterday in the afternoon, we wanted to award a few of our star donors who have over the years been stalwarts in donating for anybody, not just their friends and family. We can call them at any time. They will come in an emergency. So we awarded 3 persons. We surprised them. We very much caught them off guard.
Yes,
so the 3 persons that we had were Tracy Paris, Jomo Smithen, and Sheldon Joseph, and we really appreciate all that they've done over the years and encourage more people to follow in their footsteps and join in and donate blood, because it's very important. Some of the other things that we are doing a program this week for our students. We invited some high school students to come into the lab in the morning just to get an idea of what we do in the lab. They got to go through the different departments, and we've gotten some good feedback so far. They're excited. They've learned a lot, and we've even had a few that said that they want to be medical technologists in the future, which that's the profession that me and Julian is in. And then at the end of this week, we have our lab appreciation, our lab staff appreciation, where we will be wearing our lab week t-shirts and just doing a little fun stuff for the lab staff to celebrate lab week as well.
Okay, before we go on a little further, right? Let's do some background stuff. Your workplace that you're speaking about, because I think that we have private labs. Where you're speaking about the Alexandria Hospital?
Yes, Alexandria Hospital lab.
Yeah.
Right. And then you mentioned blood banking.
Yes.
Okay. So maybe we can go ahead and finish up what some of the stuff you had, but I want to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah.
No problem.
So continue if you had some other stuff.
No, that's about.
That was our next thing to talk about.
Okay, so as you mentioned blood banking, and you also mentioned that some of the times you mentioned some of the folks who are frequent donors and so on. So what exactly is blood banking? Do you take the blood? Do you store it? You save it for a period of time?
Yes.
And why is it we always send out a notice that we need blood? Is the bank a lot of times bankrupt?
That's not necessarily the case. You see, Nevis we are a small community, and we do not necessarily have a blood bank in the typical way of blood banking, because take for instance, most hospitals do not collect blood at where the hospital is. So they would have a detached blood bank, and the hospital more or less orders the blood. So they'll order what blood they need. But here in Nevis, we don't have facilities like that. So our hospital lab is the one. So most labs do not collect blood. Most labs, the blood is brought, and then they just go on and they cross match and do this stuff. But here,
meaning that in developed areas or in larger areas, the lab does not also store blood, but there is an entity called a blood bank that supplies different hospitals.
Yes.
So they will still have to store it. We still have to store it for a period of time, but the hospital labs wouldn't be the one necessarily dealing with the donor aspect of it. They would get the already processed blood and everything from an established blood bank institution.
So then, were these islands being small, venture into that area? Is it possible then you're suggesting that maybe it can be a private entity that operates a blood bank, and the different hospitals order from that bank?
It's possible.
possible.
And not necessarily, let's say, the Alexandra Hospital, runs one, the JNF Hospital runs one, etc.
Yes,
Oh,
but
okay.
Yeah, it's possible.
it's possible, but those things come with benefits, and they also come with drawbacks, because you would have a price on a unit of blood. Then, right now, believe it or not, a unit of blood is basically free. Where we were trained, 1 unit of blood was for 500 USD. That's when I was training, and that was 12, 13 years ago. So I do not know what the cost is now. So there are benefits to what we do, and there are also some drawbacks. But you spoke about the request being sent out for blood to be
Urgent request.
urgent
Yes.
request. There we have a few things to say on that as well. But generally, we at the lab, we manage the donor collection, the blood collection, and we also manage the distribution of the blood to the patients. And that process is a very long process.
Right, so what happens is, why I am so glad you came, because I always wanted to ask that question. Every time I hear this emergency for blood, I'm thinking that this patient, what if they don't get it? You know what I'm saying? And so that is why I wanted to know, well, can we have how does it work? Can we have a different system in place so that we don't always seem, or often seem to be in crisis mode?
Okay, so with the blood bank, we have to manage surplus, and we also have to manage depletion. So 1 unit of blood, if I take a unit of blood out of your body right now, it lasts for 35 days. Flat, 35 days. After 35 days, if it's not used, we have to discard it. That's generally not the case, because someone will use it before that most of the time. Okay, so when the blood is taken, that blood is tagged for a particular recipient. And if we have let's say five persons in the hospital who needs 2 units each, those units are tagged for those patients, and we cannot use. So at the moment, we take blood on demand, but that is not something that we want to continue to do. So what we are trying to do, we're trying to get a blood donor volunteer list, and that's basically our campaign. Right now we have about 50 persons who signed up to say that we can call them as volunteer donors if we realize that we are getting low, or if we realize that someone is in need of massive amounts of blood. And so we are trying to build that number.
Let me ask this. Then, if I have, you made a reference, suppose you were to take some blood from me. Everybody's blood has a certain quality. We agree with that? The hemoglobin content and stuff like that. So that if my hemoglobin content is good, right? And so it makes me, in terms of my body, basically very energetic and stuff like that. That's possible, right? Okay. And I were to donate to someone who does not have the same hemoglobin content. When it is infused, does it, I want to be careful how I put this, does it increase the energy level of the recipient?
I kind of think I could get where you're going with the question, but basically, when someone needs blood, the reason why we are transfusing them is because their hemoglobin is too low to
Sustain
life. So the goal is to get their hemoglobin back up to a level where they will be okay, because your hemoglobin is very important in carrying oxygen in your blood, and that's the main concern, is that they don't have the oxygen carrying capacity that they need to sustain life. So at that point, their energy level, that one unit wouldn't make much difference in their energy level. It would make a difference in their body's ability to do the work that it needs to do.
Okay. But maybe, I don't know if this would be a fair question for you. But then, let us say that it is not for that purpose. Can it be for another purpose, because my energy level is sort of low? So I can get some blood from you, which have a good hemoglobin content, so that it can improve my...
So meaning like you went to the doctor, you went to the hospital, and you're feeling like your energy level is low, but your hemoglobin is not low? That's what you're trying to say?
No, if you have a good hemoglobin content, it suggests that you can be a good energy.
Yes.
Right. So a person who is of low energy...
Well, what is the reason for the low energy?
There are many factors.
There's a lot of factors that you go into before you get to the point of transfusing somebody. They have to have a low hemoglobin, or it actively bleeding out during surgery, after a trauma or something, for us to get to the point of transfusing them.
Okay. Well, let's leave that and go on, because I don't know if I'll get my you see, every now and then I'm thinking about some sort of invention.
Oh,
you know,
okay.
so okay. So, what if someone were to say or make a suggestion to St. Kitts and Nevis that I would like to donate a blood bank for St. Kitts and Nevis? How feasible it would be, you think, based on our usage? And the fact that you said that the blood lasts for a certain amount of time, and do you think that will be feasible at this time?
Well, a blood bank is as good as the persons who are willing to donate. So someone could set up an amazing blood bank, but if we don't have willing volunteers, the blood bank will fail. Okay.
In terms of volunteers, and you said you're looking for volunteers all the time. You have some, but not everybody who is listening now will understand that is not so difficult. So can you explain for us that, how easy or how difficult it is to give blood, and what are the qualifications?
Yes, I think giving blood may be a little scary for some persons because they don't understand. So if you're considering giving blood, when you come to the lab, we'll give you a form to fill out, and that form is just a questionnaire so that we can ascertain if you are healthy enough to donate blood. There are some questions on there, and you will have to fill them out. We'll go through the questions with you. Questions like what type of medications you're on and things like that. And after you've done that part, we take you to the back and we take 2 small samples from you, about the size of this pen. So we take those 2 samples because we can't just take blood from a person without knowing that they're okay and have enough hemoglobin or energy, hemoglobin to give away. So we do the complete blood count. We make sure that their hemoglobin is fine. We also do their blood group, because the blood group is very important. Even if you come to the lab, I know it's an overkill, but if you come to donate 15 times, your blood group cannot change. But we still do your blood group. It's just policy as of now to do the blood group, because it takes about a tablespoon of the wrong blood type to kill a person. So it's very important that we do that. And we also do the screens. So we screen for hepatitis B, hepatitis C, HIV, HTLV, syphilis.
That's it.
Yeah. So those are the bloodborne diseases that can be transmitted to a person via the blood. So after we've done the testing, and then your unit will be taken, we put you on the bed, and we take the unit, as in, it's similar. If you have ever had a blood test before, it's very similar to that, just that the needle stays in your arm a little longer until the bag is full. And that usually takes between 5 to 10 minutes, depends on how fast a person bleeds. Then we tie it off, take it out, and we also give you a mouth. So that's a little incentive there.
And then also for persons who are considering being a volunteer, like some of the minimum requirements. So for someone who is donating, you have to be at least 18 years old. So the age range that we prefer is 18 to 65 years. We can also go as low as 16 to 17 years old, but you would need signed parental consent to do that. You also have to be at least 110 pounds and feeling well and healthy on the day of the donation. So if you come in to sign up and you're not feeling so well, that's okay. We'll still do the screens and check to see if you would be eligible further on once you feel better. But as long as you're feeling well and healthy on the day of the donation, then that is what matters.
How often per month or per year can the same person give blood?
Here we say every 3 months. So you can give up to 4 times a year.
And is it detrimental to the person who is given?
Actually, no.
No, it's not.
No.
And many people think that females, because we've had that question a lot, if females can donate blood. Females can donate blood. And the other question was that if you're on your menstrual cycle, if you can donate. And you can also donate on your menstrual cycle as well.
Okay, well, that's pretty interesting. So there's no need to be scary about it.
No. It's no.
And it's also important to know your blood type. Yeah,
Yes.
but here's the other question. Can somebody who do not know their blood type? That's important for you to know, right?
Yes.
So how can they do that? They can come this week and just do the tests?
Yes. There are 2 tests that we do at the lab that you do not need a doctor's requisition for. That is a pregnancy test, so you can walk in at any time and get a pregnancy test without a doctor form. And the other one is blood group. So you can walk into the lab at any time and request your blood group, and it's just for $10. $10, and you find out your blood group. And one other thing that we would like to advocate for as well is that you have something that we call blood buddies. So if you know your blood group, and it would be nice, we are advising that you find someone else who has the same blood group as you, and if you guys could have maybe an arrangement or something, blood buddies. So if you need blood, that they're willing to donate for you, or if they need blood, you're willing to donate for them, until we really have a robust volunteer donor list. And you mentioned a little earlier about the flyers going out. Generally, what we'll say on that is that a person, since I've worked here at the Alexandria Hospital, a person has never needed blood in an emergency and did not get blood. So I know sometimes the public may think that or feel that way, but that has never been the case, where a person needs blood and we just didn't have any at all to give them. Because as you said, that we also have to manage.
Yes.
We're managing 1 fridge of blood for 10,000 people. So it's a difficult thing. So you have to anticipate what may happen. Because when I leave on Friday, because as I am in blood bank right now as the medical technologist, we rotate, but I am in blood bank, and especially like on the weekend I make sure that there are enough units there in case something happens.
Okay, just let me take this. Somebody wants. Good evening. Thank you for holding.
Good evening. I'd like to ask the blood tester question.
Yes.
Okay, you said earlier that when we give blood, it lasts for 35 days.
Yeah.
However, if day 30 comes and the blood is not used, can you infuse it back into the person? So assuming that you mark it.
You mean before the 35, before the 35th day?
Yeah. Like for example, on day 30.
So you're asking if the blood isn't used, if the donor can come back and get their blood back?
Yes.
No, because there isn't any medical need to transfuse that person. Once you've donated the blood, your body compensates for that loss and you're perfectly fine. You do not need that blood again. But to answer your question as to what we do with that blood is, if let's say you donated that blood for someone who had a surgery and did not use that blood, what we do is when the doctor has give that person the medical clear, they're cleared and they've left the hospital, we do not let that blood stay there in the lab and waste. We actually mark that blood for an emergency unit. So that is how we have emergency units now. So if the person does not use that blood, we mark that for emergency unit. So if an accident happened at 3 a.m., we don't have to ask somebody to come out of their bed to donate at 3 a.m. We have a few emergency units there. And how we manage it right now, we are capable of doing that. But we would like to be more comfortable and not necessarily rely on leftover unused units to mark as emergency units. But we want to build up our volunteer donor list in that once the blood bank is getting low, that we can call. As we speak right now, the majority of persons give us permission to call them in an emergency, not necessarily when the bank is low. So we are trying to build up not an emergency list, but a volunteer donor list. And there are many persons out there. So when we ask someone, if you're having a surgery and we ask them, okay, the doctor requests that they need 3 units. So they will have to ask for 3 persons to come and donate. Albeit not all 3 may be eligible to donate, and not all 3 may match the person even though they're eligible to donate. But we found that many persons would said, oh, they have blood down there, let's use their blood. Or they'll say, let's just call the donors. You guys don't have a list? Call the donors on your list. But there's literally 50 people on that list. And these 50 people also have friends and family. So we cannot abuse that list. We cannot just call up these people and be like, okay, John Doe has a surgery on Tuesday. Can you come and donate for him? So right now, the onus is still on the patient in a non-emergency situation, whether you're having a scheduled surgery or if you're having a baby at antenatal. The onus is on you to get a few donors in so that you can have blood available for your routine surgery. But
I have a question. Somewhere along the line, I read that bodybuilders years ago used to go to the doctor, take out their blood, maybe a pint or whatever it is, and then in a month's time they would go back and infuse it back into the person, and then that will help with their bodybuilding. How true is that?
yeah, they do that. Some athletes do that as well, but that's just something that they do. That has nothing to do with clinical care per se. That is just something that they do that they feel would build their body and help in their sport.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. The body, when you donate blood, the body replenishes.
Yes.
And you did mention when I'm finished donating the blood, you will even give me a malt.
Yes.
Why would you do that?
It's just as, and a lot of people think that the malt helps to build back up that blood, but that's not necessarily true. What it is just to replenish you a little bit. We give you a little snack, a little drink, because in some places they don't give a malt. Like where I trained in the States, they give you a juice, a bottle of water, some cookies, just a snack too, because you've lost a decent amount of blood from yourself. It's just something to give your body a little boost after the donation.
Because I heard also a long time ago they used to give you some brandy.
I've heard that.
And
yeah, that's before my time.
Good evening, thank you for holding.
Before we
Good evening. I have another bloody question. Okay, so if a woman pregnant and she's about to have a baby in the next, let's say, 15 days, can she come in and give blood in case she needs blood? So you have her blood there, and then when the baby born, if she needs it during the birth, she gets back her own blood. Is that possible?
So there are situations where someone can donate blood for themselves, but for pregnant women we wouldn't recommend that because anything can happen at any time. Right now what we do for pregnant women, when they come in to do their booking, they get labs done and there's a request put in for 2 units of blood, and at that point they are given information and we talk to them about getting at least 2 donors 2 weeks before their due date. Sometimes they don't make it that far, but if you in that situation we try to be ready for anything that can happen during the delivery, whether it's C-section or vaginal delivery. So we recommend to them that 2 weeks before, at least 2 weeks before their due date, they get 2 donors to come in and donate blood for them so that we can have that blood cross-matched and ready in case anything happens. But no, I would not recommend a pregnant person donate blood for themselves.
Okay, because I know of certain religions that don't like the blood infusion, but if that could be done for them using their own blood, I guess they could save their life or their baby's life.
I'm not even sure if they would do that, though.
No, I don't think
I'm not
so.
sure. But a pregnant person is automatically illegible.
Oh.
Ineligible.
Ineligible for donation. So a pregnant person cannot donate.
All right, okay, thank you very much. The brandy that I heard when they said they used to do that is because the brandy helps build back up the blood.
That's a myth.
That's a myth.
That's a myth.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
why it's discontinued.
We also strongly recommend that you not drink alcohol after at least a couple hours to 24 hours after you've donated blood.
Yeah, so after your donation, you're not supposed to skip any meals. You're supposed to intake more fluids, take a lot of fluids, and no strenuous activities. We've had donors who feel perfectly fine afterwards, and they just did a tad bit too much shortly after, and they would have, passed out or something like that. But
How long would you recommend
24
take
hours.
it? 24 hours.
24 hours. Yeah, so and generally if you go with that rule, you'll be fine. Because some persons who have strenuous work, they would not be able to go back to work after a donation. Like, let's say if you work construction and those type of jobs, we don't recommend. Some still do, but we don't
So
recommend.
depending on what work you have to do,
Yes.
you don't do that work until 24 hours.
Yes.
And
Yes.
that's also one of the reasons we are trying to build our volunteer list, because that way you're the one who get to decide when you're coming. You can, even if we call you and say when you have time this week or something like that, so that it's better to schedule when you're coming so that you can plan out what you're doing after the donation.
Yes, and one other thing, the caller highlighted pregnancy, and we've had problems in the past before where it's recommended, we've requested that each antenatal, that each pregnant person brings a donor, 2 donors 2 weeks before their due date. Some people ignore this, and I've heard persons tell me, because usually we call that patient to remind them at the 2 week mark. With the lab, we take it upon ourselves to call them, to remind them to have them there. And I've had persons say, no, this is not my first child, I've done this before. But you never know when you'll need blood. Something as fickle as childbirth, you never know. I've had 3 children, I didn't need blood until my 3rd. So you never know. So I want to encourage any pregnant person out there, if you're thinking about becoming pregnant, do not ignore that. Do not ignore the doctor's request to look 2 units before. And something about babies, they just love to born at 3 a.m. You know, they love to come in the middle of the night. And the thing is, if the person goes into complications in the middle of the night and they do not have a unit ready in the lab, and their labor is not progressing and they have to go for maybe an emergency cesarean, the doctors do not touch that patient unless a unit is there. We don't work at night like that. We work on call. So the doctor would have to call us, we'd have to get up, we'll have to make our way to the hospital, your donors would have to come from wherever they come from to the hospital. I think we underestimate the length of time it takes to get the blood out of the person's body, cross and do all the testing in the night, cross match that blood, and then
hope that the cross match
hope
works.
that it works. Because I've had cases where I've been in there all night, literally all night until the sun comes up, and I did not get one unit compatible with that person.
And the cross match is does not consider the same type.
No.
So there's a myth that some people believe that as long as you and someone else is the same blood type, that
Example,
you can get
A
their
positive.
blood.
Yeah.
So let's say I am A positive, you are A positive. Just because both of us have the same blood type, that doesn't mean that our blood will be compatible. There's a lot of other blood groups that we don't talk about, but there's a lot of them. And so the cross-match test that we do, we basically mix the donor's blood with the recipient's blood to see if they are compatible. And there are times where both the donor and the patient have the same blood type, but because of other things going on, it's not compatible, and we cannot use that blood. So that is why we recommend that we have the blood donated and in the lab so that we can do the testing. Because I've had people tell me I know me and my sister are the same blood type, so I told her to be on standby in case of anything. But your sister could be on standby, and when she donates the blood, we realize that you're still not compatible. So it's very important to have the blood donated and in the lab beforehand,
and known,
so that we can do the testing.
And the compatibility testing takes about a half an hour.
Yes.
That has nothing to do with the screening, that has nothing to do with doing the CBC, that has nothing to do with bleeding the person. So in an emergency, you want to eliminate that time entirely.
See, it was good that we had that discussion, because I was ignorant of that fact. I thought also that once you are the same blood type, you're ready to go.
Because there are many blood group systems. The ABO blood group, that's just one blood group system. There are many others. There's Kell, there's Duffy, there's hundreds. So you could have other blood group systems on your red blood cell outside of ABO that someone can react to, even though that they are the same ABO blood type. ABO, why we go with the ABO blood type to type blood? Because it's the most, to put it simply, most aggressive. Like, it's the most common, and it shows up very quickly and easily, and it gets attacked very violently. So the other blood types, they're there as well, and if someone has a blood type on their cell and the other person does not, they would have an antibody for that blood group system that would make that blood incompatible, even though that they're the same blood group.
Okay.
And that takes about a half an hour to do.
Okay, so anything else we got to impart? Other than that, maybe we can just remind the public of the other events that you are having in your week of activities, and
Well, continuing on with talking about the volunteer donors, this month, for the entire month of April, we've been inviting persons to come and sign up to be a volunteer donor. You can come into the lab at any time between 8 a.m. and 4 p.m. to sign up. But this week, during lab week, when you come in to sign up, or if you come in to donate, we are giving a special token, nothing too big, but a special token to anyone who comes in to sign up or donate blood. So please come in and see us and join in on the fun. Tomorrow we are wearing blue, so if you want to come and take pictures with us, we've decorated, we have our picture frame. Everyone was excited so far. So we're just encouraging everyone to come and join us for Lab Week and learn more about the lab and sign up to be donors. We are really pushing our volunteer donors this year because we really want to get better with our blood supply and the donation process.
Yes, we want to reach over 100. Because, as I said, we only have about 50 names who we can call voluntarily to supply a population of 10,000 or 11,000. And we really, really want to build that number. Donation is not scary, though if you do it once, majority of the persons who felt a little fear, they at the end, they're like, it wasn't as bad as I thought. Mm-hmm. And they generally come again. And we really, really want more persons to sign up to be a volunteer donor so that we can, move forward, provide better care, provide faster service.
Okay. All right. Well, we thank you very much for coming and sharing with us. I learned something. I hope everybody else did, and we're encouraging those persons who qualify to be donors to do so. And you have the rest of this week to,
yes,
and after this week as well. Anytime you can sign up, right? Okay. All right. Julian Grant, who is a medical technologist, and so is Ernisia Pemberton.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us.
That's the first segment of the program. Second segment of the program, Talk That Get Results, up next after these.
Builders Paradise is offering a large variety of floor and wall tiles at very competitive prices. Builders Paradise has over 2 million pieces in stock, lots of different styles to choose from. Whether you're renovating or tiling a new house, Builders Paradise has what you need. Wow! Oh, and remember, we're open all day Saturday to serve you better. This is something that you can't refuse. Visit Builders Paradise today at the C.A. Paul Southwell Industrial Site in St. Kitts or call them at 466-4938.
188 acres of land is up for sale at Long John's Crab Hole Estate. It is bordering the east side of Saddle Hill, Nevis. For more information or for serious inquiries, call Mr. Edric Stanley at 869-665-5634 or 869-469-3868.
With all the power from the tower, this is the powerhouse of the Eastern Caribbean, VON Radio, from the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis.
We're back. second segment of the program for this evening. First segment featured Julian Pemberton and Julian Grant rather, and Ernisia Pemberton. They're medical technologists at the Alexandra Hospital Lab here in Nevis, and they're celebrating Lab Week. And one of the things that's specified is that you can become a blood donor. You can go to the lab this week, find out how you can do that. The second segment of the program, Conrad Nile Library, good evening.
Good evening, Webbo, and a pleasant good evening to your staff here at Vaughan Radio, and to my colleagues around the table. Good evening. Once again, we come together to discuss the issues affecting the people, and Webbo, thank you for inviting me once again. I look forward to a good debate this evening, conversation. Thank you.
Roger Fifield, good evening.
Good evening, Webbo, and good evening to my fellow panelists. And of course, good evening to the viewing and listening audience, Webbo. Webbo, I just want to shout out the guys in New York of the Hearts and Hands Society. They celebrated their 24th anniversary on the weekend gone. And I just want to shout out Will, that's Wilson Truss, DJ Silky, and of course Mr. Myers, and the new president. But before I shout out the new president, I want to say special good evening to the outgoing president, Miss Sutton. And I want to shout out to the new president in Dr. Tiffany Queely Morrell. I think that they're wonderful hosts, and I think that the event on Saturday was a wonderful event, Webbo. And we all know that they are raising funds to help us here back home and help organizations, I must say, back home here over the past 24 years, Webbo. Webbo, I'm looking for a good and fruitful discussion this evening. And I want to thank you once again for having me on this widely listened program, Talk That Get Results, Webbo. Thank you.
Edric W. Stanley, good evening.
Good evening, Webbo. As Roger had mentioned about a shout out, let me shout out Karen Amley at Social Security. They asked to give me a shout out. And Marsha Morton. So now you have gotten your shout out. I hope that you people would reach out to Vaughan Radio at certain point in time to ensure that whatever you have as news for the public, we get it here on Vaughan Radio. Karen Amry and Marsha Morton. At the same time, let us go into the program. Good evening to my fellow panelists. Good evening to the people of St. Kitts, and more especially and particularly good people and gracious people of Nevis. Those who listen to us on the World Wide Web and throughout the Caribbean Basin. Again, we are here this evening with another edition of the Let's Talk program, a very widely listened to program. And for those who may not have heard of the Let's Talk program, tune in from wherever you are across the globe, because we've got much to holler about this evening as we open the program. Webbo, we have rehashed on the program in the past about Guyana.
Yeah, before we do that, I want to mention, because you're not here, and some person had asked me, I forget the names, because I forget names a lot, but I don't forget faces and bodies, you know, so I would know you, but sometimes I don't get your name. But I found, and pleasantly so, I must say, right, I'm not complaining, but most of the times I go in a place, people would greet me, and I would become excited. You know, when people greet you, you feel good, right?
Yeah.
Feel good about it. And then they would ask me about Edric. So this is no exaggeration. Last week, in the space of less than 100 meters, and in the space of time less than a half an hour, about 3 or 4 persons, different engagements, stop me and ask me about you and tell me how, you know, excited and joyous and pleased they are always to listen to you. I'm the bearer of good news, and when I try to find the positive things in people and I accentuate that, right, and it's almost as if they're speaking or inquiring about me. So one lady, I went to this particular place, and this gentleman was sitting down, and he engaged me concerning you and the show. I wouldn't give all the content. And then there was a lady who joined us later on, and you know, she overheard the conversation. Turned out it was his wife, and again she intervened and congratulated you. Then I ran into a gentleman when I left them, and I'm driving. He stops me, and who he wants to talk about? Edric W. Stanley. Goes up the road a little further, everybody's talking about Edric. So I just wanted to know that a lot of folks appreciate what you do all through the years. When it comes to me, there's no query about that, right? You remember Whiskey?
Yes.
Okay.
Whiskey was the fellow from, he died
Yes. Yes.
from Sturgill.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. That's what I wanted to say. The other thing I wanted to do before you get into, you know, the areas you're going to get into, I found this on the internet, right? Every now and then I go there to look news. So I found this, and I thought I would share it with the panel and ask what you think about it and make a comment. It says, former Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, Winston Churchill. Your W in your name stand for Winston, innit? Edric W. Stanley.
You could say Winston,
Hello.
which is
Winston is Edric Winston Stanley.
that is
I
correct.
think that's why people like you so much, because you don't answer straight. Okay. So, former Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, Winston Churchill, once said, I took a taxi one day to the BBC office for an interview. When I arrived, I asked the driver to wait for me for 40 minutes until I got back. But the driver apologized and said, I can't, because I have to go home to listen to Winston Churchill's speech. I was amazed and delighted with the man's desire to listen to my speech. So I took out £10 and gave it to the taxi driver without telling him who I was. When the driver collected the money, he said, I'll wait for you hours until you come back, sir, and let Churchill go to hell. You can see how principles have modified against money, nations sold for money, honor for money, families split for money, and friends also. So I just thought I would share that with you.
That's a good story, Webbo. But it is ironic that the fellow did not know he was talking to Winston Churchill.
Right.
At the same time, the great Winston Churchill, who said, we will fight in the air, land and sea, and let Germany give us all it got. Britain is still standing. But we got such a terrible world right now, and as you brought the great Winston Churchill to the fore, we understand how global things occur, how people fight for space, whether air, land, and sea.
Okay. Now, what do you think about the comment?
It's a great comment. It's only Churchill can put things together like that, but it simply makes one reflect upon the powerful medium or concept of money. It spoke to how much money can affect one's decision, the roles that money play globally in every respect, really, and I think there's one saying that says money is the root of all evil, but I don't believe
the love
that.
of money.
I believe that money can also be the root of goodness and the root of a good life. But it's an interesting quote because like when you don't know, you don't know. And if you stand shakily, money can remove you from that stance. But I think if you're firm, money probably would have a harder time in removing you.
Somewhere it is also written, money answereth all things. Roger, what do you think?
Well, I believe, based on what you read earlier, it goes back to our core as humans, our integrity, how we think, how we operate. It also shows that people could be swayed easily because of money. Here it is that this taxi driver, I want to believe, listened to Mr. Churchill because he felt as if that it is something that he can learn, something that he can add to his life. And because of money, £10, here is it that you are throwing away, maybe a lifetime of learning from what you would have garnered from listening to Mr. Churchill for £10. Because I believe in that instance, and many years ago, £10 might have been maybe a few $1,000s now, or even more. But I think, as I said, it go back to the core, our principle. What do we feel? How do we stand? If we have a friend, would we betray a friend just for a few?
Let me ask you this. Would it change your view if it said £10,000?
Well, this is what I'm saying, Mr. Herbert. Back then, the £10 might have been, in today's world, the value might have been £10,000 or more.
Okay, so let us say that it is the value of £10,000.
Mm-hmm.
You think he should have still said the same thing, or he should have gone to listen to Churchill?
No, what I'm saying, if he feels as if that he would learn something that is going to edify him, something that is going to build him as an individual, and of course, to help build the society collectively, then I think that he should have forego that money.
Really?
I know it might come down to circumstances. Maybe it might come down to feeding his family. But I'm just speaking generally.
Okay, and speaking generally, before he came on the show, I was watching the case with Donald Trump, the one that's about to be tried. And one of the first lady, Susan McDougal, she was doing an interview with CNN. Let me get this first and then we can come back. Good evening, thank you for holding.
Good evening. With regards that comment by, that what you just outlined with that interaction with Churchill, I think what it showed is that for many people there is a price. Might not have been £10 for some, but as you pointed out, it might have been 10,000. Okay? For some it might have been 5. And it always, this thing, especially in politics, is particularly distasteful because what it suggests, it's almost like slavery, where you put in a value on things like your vote. I listened to an interview with Peter Wickham, who pointed out that he made the observation that in St. Kitts and Nevis, there are really no ideological differences between the parties, certainly in terms of the policies that they pursue. And that leads to a certain kind of cynicism where people say, well, all of them are the same. And so they either opt out or, they're eeny, meeny, miny, moe. Or, which is worse, they become transactional and sell their vote to the highest bidder. Okay? I think our politics generally have become more transactional, both at the individual level, party level, and so there's a lot of wheeling and dealing and horse trading. Not that there wasn't before. Certainly at a scale, yes.
Yeah, I know you're giving a political example, but let me ask this. Are you suggesting that it is not under any other heading in the society other than politics?
The heading, I think, generally is the transactional nature of things.
Right. So what I'm So then, let me ask the question this way. So the transactional nature of things does not take place under other areas other than politics?
No, it does. But the difference is, I think, in some instances, transactional, you doing something in a transactional way is perfectly acceptable. I mean, if you're buying a product, for instance, you want the best value for your money and your data, etc., etc.
No, but in other things that are not, business,
ideology and principles.
Right. So ideology and principles under other areas other than politics don't happen.
I'm struggling to find an example of that.
Oh, really?
If you're
well, let me give you an example because I was about to give an example when you called.
Okay.
So Susan McDougal was being interviewed by CNN in reference to an affair that allegedly she had with Donald Trump.
Mm-hmm.
And then she said she was contacted and by a mutual friend of somebody else. And then they wanted to hear her story.
Mm-hmm.
And then she was not really willing, and then they just said, in a very soft voice, it could be worth millions. And she said, oh, really? And then she started to say, let's play.
Right. I don't find anything wrong with that.
Okay, so then, that is why I asked. If it doesn't,
But
if
you
it doesn't
realize that
happen,
it's politics as well. The value of what information she had is probably only of that value because of the politician involved.
yeah, but what I'm saying is, when she heard it, you could get millions. He said, oh, really? Just
Yeah,
like in the
yeah.
example that we talked, the guy said, well, I was going home to listen to Churchill. But as Roger said, in those days, the 10 pounds might have been 10,000. So he says, well, here's 10,000.
Right.
And he said, well, I'll wait for you.
What it suggests is that lots of people have a price on whatever it is, whether it's information.
You really mean lots of people, or you mean all of us?
No, I think some people would not compromise themselves for certain principles.
So when you find those people, I want you to introduce me to them.
Really?
Yeah.
So Webbo, if somebody said, listen, I'm going to give you $1 billion for your business if you would kill one of my enemies, would you do it? I don't think you would, Webbo.
Oh, no, really?
Would you?
I don't know.
No, everybody, yes, everybody may have a price.
The truth is, everybody will say no.
Just won't.
Remember in the example we read, the guy was going, but what changed his mind? In other words, you ever heard, make me an offer that I cannot refuse?
Yeah.
You mean that doesn't work with everybody?
I think there's some people who would set limits.
Remember, the operative word is cannot refuse.
No, I mean, a lot of people have limits, you know.
So everybody, so you would agree everybody has some limits?
For instance, take what we normally call a real Christian. They would make all kind of sacrifices before they compromise their beliefs. Some people are like that.
Before they compromise?
They won't. In other words, they probably won't.
They probably won't,
So far as to say
but
all.
by the nature of the construct of your sentence, it therefore can also translate into they probably will. You agree with that?
Some may change.
No,
But some will not.
work with me. The mere fact that you say they probably won't, that leaves the door open that they also probably will. You agree with that?
Yeah,
Okay.
but that's my construct.
Okay, I got you.
they might have a totally different thing where they say absolutely not, no, and it is no. No is no.
Okay, while you're on politics, and this will be last, and I'll let you go. Remember, read my lips, no new taxes.
And people will say that's politics. So.
Oh, it's okay. All right. Okay, thank you.
All right then.
You see, you were saying about what happens is, to be fair, when we're just talking, we know what is the, as they say, politically correct things to say. But when the reality hits you, right? Because as the example that I'm giving with Susan McDougall, she wasn't interested, and after you hear that thing could be worth millions. And she probably told herself, and that can pay a lot of bills. Make me an offer that I can't refuse.
That's very personal.
Yeah.
It's very personal. I think the value that is placed on what it is at that point in time is very personal, and I think it's not always about integrity. I suppose, you know, it's about the value one place on whatever is offered for that particular moment in time.
Well, the reason why I spoke to integrity, and sometimes we have to ask questions. In the case with Mr. Churchill, if the taxi driver would have said, for me to wait, it would cost X amount, that's something totally different. But to come up front and say, I cannot wait because I have to listen to Winston Churchill, that is something different. Now I'm going to kind of tie it in terms of what happened some years ago in Johannesburg. All of us know of Lucky Dube. He was gunned down sometime after dropping off his child or children to school, and sometime thereafter a confession was made. The guy who shot him, he didn't know that he shot Lucky Dube, because Lucky Dube was one of his biggest artists. He supported Lucky Dube. So without the knowledge and without the understanding to know what is going on around you and know what questions to ask, coming back now to Winston Churchill, as I said, he could have simply said, look, for my waiting period is going to cost this. But having made up your mind and just going to flip-flop that easily, I am saying that as a society, we have to look and do some introspection of ourselves. What money? And then, this thing can lead up to so many things, Webbo. We had the peace program. Why do anyone have to pay me not to kill anyone? Or pay me to kill anyone, for that matter? What happens if the money runs out? I mean, to me, it goes back to the core of the individual, how the individual thinks of himself or herself. What are our values? How do we consider taking one's life? What do we do? And sometimes, Webbo, I just ask myself, when someone go and they kill someone, what do they do when they reach home, knowing that the society know that someone would have just died? The police would be gathering the evidence. What do they do? Do they go home? Do they laugh? Do they rejoice? Do they fall up and wonder, what is happening? Am I going to be caught? I mean, I don't know. And I want to believe that it's our mindset. And if we have that mindset, because these people, they communicate, and I am almost convinced that during the communications, they would have said, when I shot Tom, Dick, Jane, I felt such and such a way, but after a while, I overcome. So I am saying this to say, if we have the courage to overcome, then why don't we turn that courage into some more positivity to overcome our, let me use this in inverted commas, so to speak, our hunger to kill our fellow men? Why don't we use our courage to overcome that and to say, look, I am mature enough, I am mentally stable enough to know that killing a fellow man is not killing a fly, and I'm going to overcome that. I don't know if we have that mental aspect in our people, as we are seeing the murder rate or the mothers is seemingly on a rise again, Webbo.
Yeah, but you would agree, until you can solve these issues, you can't really conclude why certain things were done. You agree with that?
Yes.
Okay. So if you're speaking on hypothetical cases, that's one thing. But if you are going to be suggesting these things and applying them to the actual things in the society, I don't know if we can do that. Because people say and suppose all kinds of things. And until and unless you ascertain the facts, you can't make those conclusions. I mean, fairly.
Webbo, what would I, what my response to that would be, Webbo? Let's use Nevis. We don't have any high-rise buildings in Nevis. We are wondering, can we build high-rise homes in Nevis? So what I'm saying, Webbo, we have to conceptualize first. It's like building a regular home, you have to plan. You may say that it's hypothetically fine, but you have to plan, and then you know would try to, based on trends, apply what you would have conceptualized to see how it would work out in actuality.
You have done me what Edric normally do me. You have disconnected me, because I'm saying that when these things are happening, that is why it is important to have them solved, so that you can get the actual facts and evidence and know this is what happened, and then from there, then you can mitigate other stuff. I keep asking all the time, well, why these things happening? And you probably can hear various explanations. You mentioned the peace program. What I learned about the peace program, the intent, the concept of it, is contrary to what you were stating. The concept of it was to give people who are troubled or have issues, assist them in doing certain things that are gainful, so that, to use a quote, the devil won't find work for idle hands to do. Right? I don't know whether or not any of those persons made any confessions or anything to have done things that people are assuming that they did. So people got to be careful in making assumptions, assuming premises, and then making derivatives in terms of conclusions from them.
You know, Webbo, I am going to agree with you. But what I would say, Webbo, sometimes perception, it's what it is. Meaning, if the society in a whole feels that, quote unquote, gang people are getting paid for not killing people, then what I'm saying, we have to change that perception and let them know that it is not that they are getting paid for not killing people, but it is that we are finding work, so that the term that you used in terms of idle hands, so that they would not get idle hands. So what I'm saying, we have to go back to the core of the people and let the people get an understanding that this is not what it is in terms of paying people for not killing people. Because I would have heard many stories where persons would have said that other persons said, you know, I wish I was considered a gang man so I can get money too. So you understand what I'm saying?
I understand what you're saying. So then what you have to do as a society or as a people or the person who's responsible is do better effective communication.
Yes.
Right? So that when people are running away with these myths, and that is why I operate the way I operate. Some people don't like it, some people do. And if I know better, and sometimes even here on the panel, if I have better information, I'll say, well, now be informed that so-and-so is the case. And now I might end up saying, okay, well, I was not aware of that fact. And as a consequence, it perhaps changes thinking. So that is what we have to do. And that is why I said, maybe what we need to do is get these issues solved. So that you could be correct, If the evidence shows that that is what is actually happening, then that is what it is, and then we deal. But if we don't have it to make these sweeping assumptions and accept it as fact, that's dangerous. Edric.
Well, let me just say, the peace program we have. Well, let me first say this. Winston Churchill was known as the Britain's lion-hearted prime minister, and he has gone down in history as a good prime minister.
Right, but let me ask you this, Edric. If it were you, and you decided you were going to hang around, because remember, he did not know is Winston Churchill, right? If you decided, okay, you know something, there is a party going on, and I'm going to this party, have a good time. As you're about to go to this party, somebody calls you and says, Mr. Stanley, I just heard an advertisement for some land there, and I think I want to buy the land. So can you meet me now? That is, I don't have to go any further, right?
You understand?
I understand. Right. So
I told you my middle name is Winston, but it is for work.
So what has happened there is now you have been given a choice, and you're now weighing them, and you say that party will have to wait.
Quite so.
Right, because this, right, same example I said.
Bigger fish to fry.
Right, Susan McDougall didn't want to give a story. The fellow says it can be worth millions. She said, talk to me. Right? In this case, the fellow decided, well, let me listen to what Churchill has to say. But then the man says, I'll give you £10. We say, let's say 10,000 to make it sound, real
current.
Right. The man says, well, I guess the expression he used, he said, well, I'll wait and let him go to hell. Right? But he could have, maybe he didn't have to use that term, but he could have said, okay, sir, now to think about it, I'll wait. Right? He was now given a choice. And then he says to himself, perhaps, that might be a blessing from the Lord, because I was wondering how I'm going to pay my bills tomorrow, and here is the amount to pay the bills. So I don't know if we can say, well, of course, we can say anything, but I'm just putting the different views. He made a choice, and he says that is more valuable, that £10, than going to listen Churchill give that speech.
It is a bird in the hand worth 10 in the bushes. That £10 was given to him, and he's got it in his hand. He has it in his hand, and as a result, it didn't take a rocket scientist to figure out the decision to be made. He made the calculated decision then and there to say, I kept chuckling based on the comment he made. Repeat it, Webbo. Please repeat it. Did he say Winston Churchill can go to hell?
Yeah, he said I'll wait when he got the 10 base. I'll wait and let Churchill go to hell.
Oh, good. I kept chuckling throughout the conversation between you and Fifield.
But the truth is, right? Most people probably will take the 10 pounds, but some of us would say we wouldn't do it until it was them.
Listen,
that's why I think it's deeply personal.
Yes.
When you're going to do these things, he had a choice. At this point, he felt like the £10 would be of better benefit or more benefit to him at that point in time.
Well, he had already calculated, and he was quick in terms of figuring it out. And as a result, he came to the conclusion that let Churchill and his speech, or whatever Churchill has gone there to do, go to hell. And I kept chuckling. But I'm certain that had he known that he was talking to Winston Churchill, it might have taken him a little longer to make the decision and get both benefits. Take the money and figure out how to listen to Winston Churchill, because he would have gained a lot, because that is what he wanted to do. Because Winston Churchill was such a prominent figure in Britain at the time, he wanted to listen to Churchill. But not knowing whom he was talking to, he decided that he would make the decision to take the money and let Churchill go to hell.
But if he knew what it was Churchill, he probably would have made the same decision, but he might not have used the same expression.
Quite true.
He might have given him a soft bluff.
Yes. Quite true.
He might have said, well, actually, what did you say to wait for you? I didn't realize that is what you said.
But at what point such actions become unprincipled then?
And
at what point such actions where money come into the play and you turn right around? At what point that become unprincipled?
At the point where the money isn't enough to supersede the action. Meaning that, if you go back again to Susan McDougall, when she was going to be doing the interview or whatever, and she realizes either was for free or they might give her $150, she was saying, no, I'm not doing that, I'm not going to mess up my name, etc., etc. But then when the guy says it's probably worth millions, she said, well, I'll mess up my name for that. So it's like the cost reward theory. How much it will cost me as opposed to how much the reward is.
Yes.
That we use that every day in our lives.
Yeah.
Every day.
Every day in our lives, whatever we do, we look at, you calculate it and you say, well, I wasn't going to be dance with her, But when you realize that she got money, you say, well, then again, I think she could dance good. So you do, it's the cost reward theory.
Webbo, even straight back to Churchill, it comes to how we go about things. How we go about things. And I'm saying that people, they need to be, we need to be a little more smarter, so to speak. How do we go about things? Well, if you're a good builder and you're going to build a house and you have a piece of land right here in Bath and you're going to construct a home, nice, you're probably the best builder in St. Kitts Nevis and you're building your home, but then you didn't go to the planning board, and they come and they stop you. You know, so to me is the how. I may not be as good a builder as you are, but I went through the ropes. I went to the planning board, and I could now continue building my home, whereas you can't. So I am saying
that is slightly different, though, that analogy. We're talking about making a decision in terms of, as you say, integrity or whatever, right? Everything has a cost or price to it or value. And then if it exceeds, again comes back to, if you make me an offer that I cannot refuse. If you're, for instance, a business person, right? You have a particular item. You did not intend to sell it because of sentimental value. Mm-hmm. But somebody comes along and he says, well, I give you $3 million for that, and you know that it probably was valued at $1 million or something like that. You tell yourself, I think I'll take the $3 million and build 3 more. Or whatever so it depends on the value.
Right. Webbo, I understand, but what I'm saying, if the taximan went about it differently, then we would have been having a different
differently meaning what, as far as an example?
Right, how he went about it. What I'm saying, he could have simply said, you know, look, I would wait if you give me $10, £10, £15, as the case may be, for waiting time. But to say what he said up front, he have to go home to listen to Winston Churchill, and then Winston Churchill would have said, here's £10, and then he just flip-flop like that. That is what I'm saying. You know, how he went about it in initial stages.
Okay.
He could have gotten that same £10 because he have his family to feed. But it's how he went about it, in my opinion.
I'm not getting you. The thing is that he made...
So he's disconnecting you?
No, I wouldn't put it that way. He made a conscious decision based on calculation with the information he had. The fact that he doesn't know Winston Churchill personally, and as a result, he is bringing this person to and getting a fare, and as the person gave him the £10, he made the calculation that this is valuable, and therefore to hell with Winston Churchill.
Yeah, that's of a higher value to him than listening to the speech.
Right.
It's like, okay, a taxi operator might say, well, I'm not going off-road after 10 at night. Somebody comes along, the normal taxi fare is $20. The taxi man says, well, I want to go off-road because of whatever. The taxi man says, I don't go off-road at night. The fare is normally $20. The customer says, here's a $50 extra. Well, where you say you want to go? Because the reward is worth the risk.
Yeah. Quite so.
So, you know, it's all well and good to sometimes talk about principles and integrity and so on, and that is fine. But when you examine what it is at stake, the value and that is put to it, you begin again to put the cost-reward theory.
I would say that the fellow was a very quick thinker. And
okay, just a kind of example. You're at a bus stop and you're assisting this blind individual to, you know, get on the bus and so forth. You're waiting the bus and you're there with him and he wants you to be there with him. And somebody come and say, well, Naya, I'm going straight to your shop and you can make some money right now instead of standing here trying to assist this individual. And you left the individual and you run to the shop to make the money. What do you think about that? That's unprincipled, right?
No, or you can say, such as what it is that I'll make at the shop. when I compare it to what I have already, I can conclude that assisting the blind across the road is of more importance or value to me than to go and make that extra $5. Because again, it is a value.
How much it means to
right? Sometimes, for instance, you might be selling in a shop. Somebody comes along. You paid for those goods. You bought them from somebody to sell. Somebody comes, you conclude that they really need. So you take the stuff and they're trying to pay you and you say, it's okay, go ahead, you take it. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So again, it comes down to a personal decision. You look at the value of it to you. The guy might have told himself, okay, I don't have anything else to do, and so on. I'm going back to listen. The speech. He might have even assessed, based on what he normally says anyway. I think I better take the 10 pounds.
And that is why you would have correctly said, Webbo, earlier, the facts. We have to get the facts. And when we get the facts, I guess, when we get the facts, we can, better, ascertain exactly, where we would be going.
Yeah, because he there was not that ingredient of money before when he decided, or he had, in his mind to go home and listen to speech. Now the ingredient of money have presented itself. He has other things to think about now. Then he's weighing up the pros and the cons and the value of the money as opposed to going home to listen to speech.
Anyway, Edric, somebody else wanted to bring up something else because we're running out of time.
The regional airline that has replaced Liat has brought to the fore a few potential mishaps, and we have to be very careful. I've always propelled the argument that Liat in its history has been a very safe airline, but we have now attempted to replace the moving of passengers within the Caribbean with this new regional airline with potential disastrous consequences. As a result, I'm recommending to those who are in charge, whether in Antigua or Trinidad, wherever the airline has been established, more regulation, at the same time inspection, and ultimately the objective is to bring about a safer regional airline than based on the current happenings of this new airline. The war between Iran and Israel, I believe that Israel has already made the decision to go after Iran based on the history of Israel. I am fully convinced that Iran is a paper tiger, and therefore Israel should retaliate with vehemence and put Iran and its proxies in their places. Netanyahu, of course, is not the best person to govern Israel at this point in time, but based on the information we got, I think that Israel should retaliate, because what Iran attempted to do with Israel with the barrage of missiles drones and whatever they have thrown at Israel. Luckily, the forces, coalition forces, were able to put together quickly and timely to ensure that what was coming toward Israel had been mitigated, and as a result, Israel is still standing. Sure, it has been calculated as a win, but Israel can't give up its dominant position in the area. As a result, it has to do what it must do to ensure that it continue to be dominant. Now,
let me just take this, Edric. Good evening. Thank you for holding.
Yes, listening to Egypt Stanley sounds very bloodthirsty, right? One can argue who really started this, right? And I would suggest that Netanyahu saw an opportunity to deflect from Gaza and perpetuate himself in power, and it apparently has worked, right? The bottom line is, right, what Israel is doing is against all humanitarianism, right? You can't tell me that simply because you're in a fighter plane or you're guiding a drone somewhere, you don't care what collateral damage there is, and you're going to be killing thousands of innocents. I don't know how that becomes the norm all of a sudden. Okay, and we have to go back to international law and certainly some rules. I mean, rules of war might be an oxymoron, but bearing in mind the travesty that has happened there, I mean, to me that was just brutish, right? And so we can't abandon all the rules of war and humanitarianism and those things to say that we're saving Israel. This is a really asymmetric warfare,
and maybe they're saving Israel at the price of something else.
What's that?
And maybe they're saving Israel at the price of some other place and persons.
It's as if all the rules going out of the door. What happened? Remember that embassy raid in Ecuador, somewhere in Latin America, right? The United States also condemned that, But how come they didn't condemn the raid on the Iranian embassy, the Iranian compound?
Damascus.
Right? You can't have double standards like that, and there's too much of that, and it's going to cause a lot of conflict in the world.
Okay. Yes.
The thing is, I'm not bloodthirsty, and I am still condemning Israel for the massacre that occurred in Gaza. Let me repeat, I'm not bloodthirsty, and I am not condoning what Israel did with regard to the massacre that occurred in Gaza. It is unconscionable, it's illegal, according to the war rules. But at the same time, we know exactly how this thing came about. Iran and China.
So, in other words, if I'm picking you up correctly, what they're doing is wrong. They're killing people and so on and so forth, and you condemn it, but continue.
You're giving permission to continue?
No, I'm asking you, if you're telling me that what I'm doing is wrong, you do not agree with it, however, continue doing it.
No, well, we have to understand the complexity of the region.
Yeah, walk with me. I'm going around and I'm killing everybody. and I have arguably a good reason for doing it. You come along and you say, I do not agree with you doing that, killing people, and so I condemn you doing that, but go ahead, do it.
No, Webbo.
Okay. So what are you saying then?
I'm saying Iran with Hezbollah as one of its proxies, the Houthi rebels in Yemen, Hamas, based on how the dynamics are, Iran is a troublemaker in the region, and as a result they must be dealt with reference to what happened on Saturday night. Is Saturday night? Yes, Saturday night. And therefore Israel should hit back, not that I'm bloodthirsty.
I'm going to ask you one more time. I did not use and will not use the term bloodthirsty. If I'm doing something, I feel that I'm right, and you come along and say what you're doing is wrong, I condemn what you're doing. However, because you feel and or know that you're right, I think you should continue.
Not at all, Webbo. Not at all. I'm saying to you, you have to understand the history of the region. And as a result,
can't you appreciate, Mr. Stanley, that just like how we're coming to the end of the hour, I've heard the arguments, and I'm asking you, what is your ruling?
my ruling is, or my conclusion is, Israel has to still remain the dominant force in the region.
So put simply, so that everybody can understand, what I am doing is hurtful. It is wrong. I do not condemn it. I condemn it. And notwithstanding, you think that you are right because I was wrong. Continue doing it?
No, Webbo. I said no
Okay,
before.
well, yeah, so I got you, and that's the last word. This program repeats at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning, following the VON News Minute. Join the Honorable Mark Brantley tomorrow evening at 8 o'clock for On the Mark. Join Keith Scarborough on Thursday evening at 8 o'clock for Government at Work. A good place to spend all of your evenings right here in the Eastern Caribbean Spa House. Thank you all again for joining us. This is your voice in the community. Thought that get results. You all have a wonderful evening.
Views and opinions expressed on our seal program are solely those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect those of the News Broadcasting Company Limited or its